Hey y'all, recently on a social media site, a lady was talking and said that her and her children eat at McDonald's or Taco Bell now because it's cheaper than cooking meals from the grocery store. Now, I raised 6 children, had 6 children who are all adults now, and I disagree that it's cheaper to eat at McDonald's or Taco Bell. No offense to McDonald's or Taco Bell. I love a Big Mac or a Burrito Supreme as much as anyone else on occasion. But in my experience, it's cheaper on the budget if you cook your meals at home, and it's definitely a lot healthier. So today I'm going to be making a $10 family meal. It feeds multiple people. Like I said, I raised 6 kids, so I was cooking for 8 people on average, and when my stepchildren were in town, I was cooking for 10 people. So this meal cooks for a lot of people. It's cabbage goulash, and it can easily be cooked for $10. Now you can change the ingredients if you want. The main ingredients are going to be hamburger meat or beef, whatever you want to call it. Here in Texas we call it hamburger meat, but it's ground beef and cabbage and onions and some soy sauce and some cream of mushroom soup along with some salt and pepper. And I probably left something out, but as I go along I will list all the ingredients that I'm using. I think I left out diced tomatoes. So anyway, let's get started and show you how to make a $10 family meal. Okay, so this recipe calls for cabbage, 1 head of cabbage, which currently is $1.48 each. A pound of ground beef, which currently is $2.99. 1 onion, what is that? Less than 1/4. The tomato sauce is optional, but sometimes I like mine to be more tomatoey, so I do add a little 50-cent can of tomato sauce. 2 cans of diced tomatoes, which are currently 79 cents a piece. And 2 cans of cream of mushroom soup is what I have here. I paid 50 cents a piece for these. But currently the large can, which would be the equivalent of these, is $2.29. I also use soy sauce. Here's the light soy sauce, which is currently $1.49. And I only use 1/3 of it, so you wouldn't even factor in the total price of this. I also use some Cajun Seasoning, usually Tony Chachere's, but I didn't have any today, so we're going to use this Kroger Smidgen spoon. So let's get started making this cabbage goulash. So the first thing you do is you're going to want to dice up an onion. Doesn't matter if it's a white onion, red onion, yellow onion, just get an onion and dice it up. I have to keep in mind that not everyone knows how to cook. Not everyone understands certain cooking terminology. And I sometimes forget to say things that I should have said for someone who's inexperienced, and for that I apologize. But I think everyone understands how to chop up an onion. You're going to throw the onion into your pan once you're done chopping it up. Now you're going to take your ground beef, and you're going to put that into the pan. Go ahead and chop up your ground beef. And we're going to saute this on medium heat until all of the ground beef is brown. Alright, so I'll be back once the ground beef has browned. Okay, now that the hamburger meat has browned and the onions are soft, we're going to go on to the next part. Okay, the next step is to clean your cabbage. I take off these outer parts, then I wash it in the sink. I'm going to do that real quick. Now we cut off the end. We're going to cut off the sides. And you're going to start cutting your cabbage. There's no wrong way to do it. Move this out of my way. You can see by my finger how big the pieces are that I'm cutting. Throw that into your pot. If you have a bigger cutting board, that's great. I live in a tiny house and a lot of my stuff is small. You're basically just cutting the cabbage down into bite-sized pieces. Put that in the pan. Going until you've cut up all of the cabbage. I don't use the center part of the cabbage. It just doesn't taste good to me. So the rest of that will get fed to my chickens. Some people might want to use the whole cabbage. That's up to you. To me, the center part tastes a little more bitter. Like I said, you can use the whole cabbage if you want to. Okay, now we've got our cabbage in with the hamburger meat. Just stir all of that up. Still cooking over medium heat. And now I'm going to sprinkle on some of the Cajun seasoning. I do not measure it. As you can see, I'm just sprinkling it on. Now I'm going to take the soy sauce, and I'm going to have to figure out how much I use so that I can tell y'all, because I don't measure that either. That's the last time I cooked this recipe, and as you can see, I used about 1/3 of the bottle. So let me see real quick how much this will be. Okay, so I put a cup of soy sauce in there. You can adjust that to your taste. Now I'm going to add 2 cans of diced tomatoes. Stir that in. Normally I wouldn't stir it after each ingredient. I'm just showing y'all what it looks like as we go along. Add a can of cream of mushroom soup. Sometimes I use 2, or I'll use the big one. Sometimes I'll just use 1. You can adjust recipes according to how you feel. still cooking it on medium heat. I wanted a little more tomatoey tonight, so I'm going to add a can of tomato sauce. You can also add V8 if you want. Add some black pepper, which I didn't mention earlier, but I am going to add some. Just sprinkle it in there. I don't usually add salt because the soups and the soy sauce have a lot of salt in them, so usually I just say if you want your saltier, add some to your own bowl. I don't add it to the pot because it's salty enough for me. I think I'm going to go ahead and add the other cream of mushroom soup tonight. And I'm going to go ahead and add a third can of tomatoes, just because that's what I feel like. But you can do it with as little as 2. I'm going to add some water to thin it up a little bit. There's 1 cup. And I can tell by how thick it is that I want to add another cup. That's a lot better. All right, so now that I've added the extra 2 cups of water in here, I'm gonna put my lid on and I'm gonna let it sit here and simmer for the next hour. So we're gonna let this simmer for the next hour. And I cooked it for another 30 minutes because the cabbage wasn't quite as soft as I want it to be. So I cooked it for a total of an hour and a half. Let's see what it looks like. And here's my bowl. We normally eat it with some sort of bread. This is a sourdough multigrain bread. Some people would say this is a healthy meal. Some people would say because of the cream of mushroom soup and soy that it's not. I'd say it's partially healthy. Much better than eating McDonald's or Taco Bell every day. And it's a relatively inexpensive $10 meal. So there you go. That's how you make an easy cabbage goulash for $10. Thank you guys for watching, and if you haven't already, please subscribe.